Good evening, welcome to this evening's transition event. This will stay live on our website for the duration of the summer holidays. Clearly this year's transition evening is so very different to any that you may have attended at our school in the past, and it does contain a number of our responses to the coronavirus pandemic. This evening we'll talk about a number of things that you would expect, a little bit of a welcome to us, who we are, our ethos, our vision, what the school day will look like for your children and how you may need to plan to cater for that, what subjects the children will study, the equipment that they will need, a little bit of information about the school uniform, what we will do to keep your children safe, the behaviour system in schools briefly alluded to this evening, and wider support networks as well. Well, what a year it's been. Who'd have thought it? When you applied for places at secondary school, there's no way you'd have planned not being there at the end of year 6 and not taking your SATs. We know that children returning to school in September is a very, very big thing. And we hope this evening to iron out some of the concerns or worries that you may have about that return to school and to formal education being on a different site. We know that a number of children will have attended as key worker or vulnerable children. We know that some children's schools were open for year 6 over these past few weeks. And as a result, we're ever so mindful that there's a real difference in what the children have experienced compared to their peers. And every child really is unique. The virtual transition programme seems to have gone down really well with you all, and we're really grateful for the lovely feedback that we've been receiving in regards to that. The main priority of our virtual transition programme has been for you to be able to see and get to know some of the teachers who will or may be teaching the children. If they've not engaged in the transition work booklet, if at the very least they've just got to know who those teachers are, what they look like, what they sound like, then that's a real positive. The vast majority of you have had phone contact now with Miss Bailey, your head of year, and I know that those calls have been well received. There's a real range of experiences, and we are planning for our new normal. Your experience at the Kings will be very different to your experience at your primary school in the past, and the experience of our children this year in the main will be a different experience. And we want to make sure you know what it is that we're planning to make sure that our school is as COVID secure as it possibly can be. The Kings is a super place to learn, it's a super place to work. We're really proud of what we've built as a school community. Our Christian values are not just written on a piece of paper and kept in a ring binder. Our Christian values are at the core of everything that we do. Everything that we plan, every decision that we make, every policy that we write, every meeting that we run, every curriculum that we plan, and every action that we take as a school has got our Christian values at their very core. It is our vision to enable every student to achieve their God-given academic and personal potential, and that's so that they can make a positive impact in the world. We really do seek to be a community built on knowing God's truth and love, and our 6 core Christian values are fundamental to what we do: justice and grace, trust and thankfulness, aspiration and celebration. And whether you subscribe to a Christian way of life, whether you have any faith or none, those 6 values are ones that we know are recognised and accepted by our parents, our students, and our local community. They are things that we would want to instill in our children, no matter what our background. We start every day now with chapter time, and in our chapter time is an amount of worship every day. Some days that worship makes up the majority of the chapter time, and sometimes it's a smaller portion to allow for time to be taken up with business as well. But every day we start our day just reflecting on what it is that it means to be part of the King's School and to be a King's School student. There are loads and loads of staff at the Kings. We're a big school, and there are over 60 adults who the children may come into contact with on a daily basis. Here are just a few names that the children will want to know, need to know, want to know how to get hold of. And so here, just for reference purposes, are the different key members of staff that you may wish to contact as part of your communications with school. think it's crucial to mention at this point that a child's chapter leader ought to be the first port of call for parents and for children. If you've got something that you want to ask about, if you've got something you want to celebrate, if you've got something that you want to know a little bit more about. So your children have missed out on a lot. They've not had a transition week. They've not had additional transition, those who are more vulnerable. They've not had an opportunity to get to know their staff. They've not had an opportunity to get to know the building. We're facilitating that on Thursday and Friday in the start of the academic year. Our academic year begins on Thursday the 3rd of September after 2 days of teacher training, and that's when we are facilitating transition days for your children. The older year groups will be attending school, but for half a day each over those 2 days. Our year 7 children will be in school in their chapter groups for both of those days, carrying out a number of the transition week activities and start of the year activities so that they can get to know each other, so that those who are coming on their own from primary school can meet other children, so that those who are coming with lots and lots of friends but not necessarily in their class can get to know the wider class. It's really important that the children have that time to bond, that time to learn some names, that time to understand what a timetable looks like and how it works, that time to understand how it works to go to the toilet, the little niggly questions that you have for a secondary school when you change building, how you work out how to get from the entrance to your classroom. All of those things, the children will have 2 days specifically for them. The virtue of being in year 7 at the point at which we've got the coronavirus pandemic does mean that the children won't ever need to be queuing with the wider school for the moment. Everybody's on staggered lunch times and staggered break times, but those children who are used to queuing in a year group of 1 or 2 classes will suddenly be in a year group of 6 classes, and we need to help them manage those hurdles and those nuances that you get at secondary school that you don't necessarily get primary school. So these 2 days will go a significant way to supporting those children who are more concerned about transition, and actually those who just need to know a little bit more. Here you can see that we've got the COVID-19 symbol on the top right. So any time that what we're doing is unique this year, especially as a result of our response to the coronavirus pandemic and the government's guidance to schools, you'll see that little symbol. So we've already mentioned this, but just to make this really clear, government have indicated that schools need to operate at secondary level in year group bubbles. To that end, we are staggering as per the guidance from the Department of Education. So our days will start and finish at slightly different times depending on the child's year group. Break times are at different times and lunch times are at different times, with time for cleaning in between each section. So we ask please that the children arrive on site punctually and that they leave punctually. We know that there are children who sometimes wait about for friends in different year groups, children who sometimes arrive significantly early, and children who wait for older peers and older family members. What we'd ask this year, please, is that we're respectful of the coronavirus pandemic and the need not to be loitering. So as part of your planning for September, if you can be mindful of starts and ends of the school day, then that will help us to mitigate the risk for everybody. We have changed our school day to make sure then that the children can be safely into the building within their bubbles and that they can move around and appropriately to keep themselves safe. The day will start for year 7 at 8:25. That's when they will need to come through their door, and they'll be using the student entrance that's next to the sports hall. So as you arrive at the school, it's one that's straight ahead of you, stood to the left of our reception and the slightly covered area. The children will go straight to chapter time, and every morning our year 7 children will have 35 minutes together to check in on their emotional well-being, to carry out the daily worship, to do the bits of business that are assigned to that particular day of the week. And then their learning kicks in. There are 5 one-hour lessons throughout the course of the day. The children have a 15-minute break time and a half an hour lunch time. Lunches will be booked in advance if they wish to have hot meals, and information about that will be coming out over the summer break to all parents, both those who are new to the school and those who've been with us for a long time. This is a change to our system in order to help us to better respond to the pandemic. The end of the school day for year 7 will be at 2:45. Crucially, we are working on extracurricular activities with local partners, and that information isn't quite finalised at the moment. As soon as we've got that, we'll get that out to you all via email and through the school's social media outlets and on the transition area of the school website as well. So keep an eye on those and come back to them for more information. Here you can see the subjects that the children will study. We follow the national curriculum, so children study all of the subjects that are on the national curriculum, and they study them throughout Key Stage 3. It's not until Key Stage 4 that children refine their curriculum choices. The curriculum's broad, it's varied, and parts of the curriculum are what we refer to as the core curriculum and parts of the curriculum foundation curriculum. As a general rule of thumb, the core are the things that children study throughout their time at secondary school, and the foundation of the subjects where there may be some options available to them as they progress through their education. Crucial to understand that the rules and guidance around Key Stage 4 options do change year to year, so we wouldn't be able to predict at this stage what it would be that the children will be able to opt for when they move into Key Stage 4. Students do need to have their own equipment. Now, this is really important as part of the response to the coronavirus pandemic. We're advised that we shouldn't be loaning equipment out to children, and those who've accessed education recently at primary school will be used to either having to take your own stuff in a little bag and keep it to yourself, or that there's a little tub and it goes away every night and it comes out whenever your child's in. So at secondary school, the children need their own equipment. There is a full list here on this slide, but also it's detailed in the letter that's going out to everybody as well. Can just draw your attention, please, to the fact that the children do need a glue stick, they do need highlighters, they do need their own pencil crayons. The water bottle, our water fountains are slightly wide, chunky distributors, so a wide necked bottle is better than a small necked one. And the children will need to have their own personal hand sanitizer as well, just to help speed things up. We will have sanitizer all over the building, but in the classroom, those that want to use it a little bit more frequently will need to have that with them as well. We do ask that children have a school bag, and note that's not a handbag, that is a school bag. Very small details surrounding school uniform are available on our school website under students and school uniform, so you can find all of that in much detail if you want it. But a few points of note: jewellery, children are allowed to wear a wristwatch, they're allowed to wear one stud per ear, but that's it. No rings, no necklaces, no bracelets, no additional studs in their ears, no hoops. It's critical that it's a stud, and that's for health and safety. We're very clear about mobile phones. We appreciate that as parents, lots of you may want your child to have a mobile phone. We're very clear that to improve communication and to prevent cyberbullying whilst in the building, so on and so forth, all mobile phones must always be in bags and they must always be switched off. They're never out and they're never in pockets. We reserve the right to confiscate mobile phones in line with the guidance 3 years ago from government, and we communicate with parents directly about that. So mobile phones always in bags, never out, never in pockets, or they'll be confiscated. Shoes are often a question that gets asked to us is what's acceptable? Well, basically, in a nutshell, we don't allow canvas. The shoes must be leather looking and there are to be no markings on them. We just bring to your attention that Clarks often have a back to school range. They have a shoe that looks quite a lot like a trainer. That shoe isn't allowed at our school. So shoes need to be leather looking, they need to have no canvas on them, and they ought to have no markings at all either. Full PE kit is part of the children's uniform, and importantly, as we'll discuss in a moment, the children will be wearing PE kit on PE days. Okay. Just very briefly mentioned this, but they do need to be wearing PE kit all day on days when they have PE. To reassure you, there's no PE on transition days. The timetables will be issued on that Thursday, the 3rd of September. So PE lessons will take effect on the Monday of the second week of the academic year. And any day on which a child has PE, they must be wearing their full PE kit for the whole school day. Our behaviour system is quite straightforward, and we have had to do a couple of updates in response to coronavirus from some guidance from government. That update will be on the website later this week, but it's built on justice and grace, and our focus is on rewarding positives. All incidents, positive, negative, carry points. All our positive behaviours carry 50 points, and all our negative behaviours result in a loss of 25 points. So it's double the amount of points for positive behaviours, and that's because we encourage positivity. We do have detention system, we do communicate with you in advance, and you will always know the reasons for those detentions should they be issued. It's always our aim not to need to use them, but there are occasions where they're necessary. We do seek opportunities to use restorative practice as and when it's necessary, but crucially, you need to know that we communicate with you as and when children receive a positive or a negative behaviour point. And if you subscribe to the app that the school uses, then you will be able to see those sanctions and those rewards as they're given, as they're awarded. We do that in the moment during a lesson. So if your child were to receive a positive reward during a lesson, your mobile phone would ping with Joe Blogs has just been given this for this reason. What a lovely thing as a parent that you receive. Wider support network is really important, and we know that as a result of the recent partial school closures, there may be more and more need as time goes on. So critically, as a parent, you need to know that your first port of call is your child's chapter leader. In order to communicate with your child's chapter leader, it's super simple, and it's their first initial and surname followed by @thekings.staff.sch.uk. We'd ask that you keep us informed about anything that might affect your child. And experience tells us that key things make a big difference. If we know about key dates, bereavements within the family, key changes that somebody's gone away to work for a little while, that grandparents have gone on an extended holiday, that there's recently been a separation, that somebody in the family is poorly. If we know about that, then we can preempt, we can support, we can know that there may be a change in your child's presentation. So communication really is key. We believe that with children, and we believe that with parents and school as well. Our inclusion team covers special educational needs and pastoral support, welfare support, safeguarding needs. That team is a specialist team within the school, and the vast majority are dedicated support staff amongst our professional body within the building. So they're available throughout the day to meet the needs of individual children. It's important that we share at this point that intervention and support groups will this year be in year group bubbles only, so there'll be no mixing of year groups. And our footprints group will operate in the same way. So our footprints group, for those who don't know about it, is a group to support children who suffered bereavement and loss. And this group will meet in year groups over a specific week of each half term. And the group come together just to have lunch and to be with other children who've experienced bereavement and loss. It's not a group where they talk openly about these things. It's not a structured group as such. It's more a group to realise that we're not on our own. There are other people. There's a commonality of experience across the year group as well. To have a nod in the corridor to people that you know may be suffering like you are, and also to see which members of staff are more trained to support with bereavement and loss on the school staff body. We have access to external agencies, and we welcome them to support the children in school. And likewise, as we said, there's a dedicated pastoral support team who supports chapter leaders as well as heads of year. Keeping your child safe is our absolute number one priority. Our designated safeguarding lead is Miss Milne, and the deputy designated safeguarding leads are Mr Worthington and Miss Williams. Mr Worthington sits on the SLT, as does Miss Milne, and Mrs Williams is the support services manager of the pastoral support team in school. All three of those have complete access to records that we hold in school about safeguarding and child protection, and our heads of year and pastoral support staff can access appropriate information about appropriate children. Our children can talk to any adult within school. They're all trained in safeguarding and level 1 child protection, but this team is the specialist team, if you like, across the building. If your child's open to a social worker at the moment, then please do seek a conversation with one of the team in advance of transition for September. But all records will be transferred to secondary school as well as primary school. We know that the return to schooling and formal education in September for some parents is a really welcome change and a welcome return to whatever new normal might feel like and look like. We know that for another group of parents and children, this return to formal education in schools is a real worry. And we want to reassure you about what we've done, the steps we've taken to mitigate against risk. The the guidance from government is really clear about certain things, and as is typical, a little bit flexible in other areas. So these are things that we've particularly done across our school in order to keep the children and the workforce safe. So we've got staggered start and end times, staggered break and lunch times. There is an increase in emotional support for our children. We're very fortunate to have access to the mental health support team. The school day will start with chapter time every day. So the children are met by their chapter leader, the same member of staff, every single day, to look for changes in presentation, how the children feel, to check that they are okay, that they're coping, that they're managing with the new situation and the new normal. Hand sanitizer all over the school. There've been sanitizer pumps installed at all the key entry and exit points. All classrooms will have sanitizer in them as well. Every time a child changes room, they must sanitize. And you will have noticed the hand sanitizer is part of our equipment list this year, and that's a key change. Children will be wearing PE kits on PE days. They'll be sticking in their year group bubbles. The school's been sectioned into the different year groups, and we have also increased all the cleaning, and we've got dedicated staff for each bubble, so the staff aren't crossing over for the cleaning purposes. We have, during the partial closure period, increased the CPD for our staff around supporting children's emotional needs. All our staff have access training around bereavement and loss and adverse childhood experiences, so that they are more skilled to meet the children's emotional needs. And likewise, in line with government guidance, we've adapted both our behaviour and safeguarding policies. Finally, just a few things to share with you. So setting information, we'll share with you as soon as we're in a position to do so. We're still missing information from a couple of schools, and we are chasing those, but it would be unreasonable for us to set a year group with a large school group not yet catered for within that grouping. Please contact us if you're concerned about funding access to secondary school education here at the Kings. We can support with finances, and we would need you just to make contact with us in good time about that. Free school meals, it's important to know that if your child is in receipt of free school meals, then there are a couple of things you need to be aware of. If your child accesses free school meals and is currently attending a Staffordshire school and you live in Staffordshire, you need to do nothing at all. If you live out of Staffordshire, so if you live in Cheshire East or you live in Stoke-on-Trent, then you must contact the free school meals teams in your local authority and reapply. The free school meals benefit doesn't transfer automatically out of your home local authority. So if you pay your council tax to Stoke-on-Trent or to Cheshire East councils, you must make contact with your council about free school meals. We are holding a live stream on Thursday evening. It will be live on Facebook, and then we'll save it and upload it to all our other social media channels and the website. If you have a question that you want to raise there, then please do send it into transition@kings.staffs.sch.uk or send it by the messaging facility on Facebook, and we will do our best to cover all of those questions. This is a real new thing for us. Suppose we're sort of modelling it on the Downing Street briefings, if you like, in that there'll be a panel of people to respond to your questions, and we won't have seen the questions in advance. So please make use of that system and be kind to us as well as we respond to the live nature of it. Please, if you've got any niggling queries, do make contact with us. And all that remains really for me to say is please enjoy the summer holidays as the country comes out of the very strict lockdown into us having many more liberties. Enjoy those holidays, enjoy the time with the children when you can do a little bit more. Prepare them for returning to school in September. Talk through this sort of information with them. But most of all, please relax, have good routine in place, and we look forward to welcoming your children to the Kings on Thursday, the 3rd of September.